So Thandeka, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit about your own journey? Okay. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Hammersdale, Mpumalanga Township in KZN. And I managed to we stayed there, moved around because of the violence. So we stayed in Maritzburg, Lazi, but really primary home has always been Hammersdale, which is still our family home till today.
And what was your dream career when you grew up?
I never had a dream career. I think the only thing I knew growing up and with all the circumstances that we found ourselves in was that really I didn't ever want to be dependent on anyone. That was the only thing I knew. But in terms of the career, really, I'd be lying.
So, were you part of the struggle?
No, not really. I think when I'm 81, I was born in 1981, so at the height of the struggle, I was in probably my early primary. So it wasn't really being in the struggle, but really being in a community that was caught in the struggle. Because if you look at the history of Hammersdale, it's a space where we had both sides. We had the ANC, IFP factions, we had the apartheid government impact. So it was very much a microcosm of what was happening across the country, where there was just conflicts across the board. So you almost grew up in a way that forced you as a child to be street smart and really be aware of your environment at all times. But it also, in a weird way, fostered a very community type community environment. As a result, people you grew up with and the community you lived in are still people that we know today.
And how did it form your outlook on life?
I think for me, the thing that was settled in it was I was very certain at all times that one can survive anything. I wasn't fearful as a child. And I think when you grow up in an environment where fear is not an option, it's really adaptability becomes a critical point. I think my entire focus in life was just be adaptable. You don't know. And I think living with relatives across the board, as you're moving around, living with strangers, you realize adaptability is something that is critical for any development of any human being if they are going to get the best out of themselves or their environment.
When you say fear is not an option, does this mean you don't have fear at all? Or how do you handle your fear?
You know, funny enough, somebody yesterday, I was having a conversation with a colleague yesterday from another firm, and she was reciting a story of when her father actually passed away about 2 years ago, and what her grandmother said to her. And her grandmother said to her, you don't have to be strong or fearful, you just have to be brave. And I think that's the difference, is that it doesn't mean that you're not necessarily afraid, you're just choosing to be brave, because being caught in fear and being paralyzed by fear is not an option. It's more going into it, going through something. So if you're finding yourself, for example, when you're growing up, you're sent to the shop and violence erupts and the shop closes, and at some point you need to get yourself home, fear and staying in the shop was not an option. You almost had to be brave and figure out how do you get home in the safest way possible. And that's what I mean by not necessarily being by fearless, is that it's acknowledging your fear but choosing to work through it.
Choosing to do the right thing at the time?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
And that's what it's actually evolved into as an adult, is it's choosing to do the right thing even when it's not fashionable, or it's not, people don't see it as something that one does if they're trying to self-preservate or grow or do whatever. It kind of calls a higher purpose in you to always fight for a good cause.
And what are the principles that you place your decisions upon when you say doing the right thing?
So my biggest driver is I grew up in a Christian household, and as much as, you know, all people say when you're growing up you're almost forced to go to church, I was forced for a long time, and I got to a point around standard 8, I don't know what is it now, grade 10, I think. Grade 10, 11, I kind of started building my own relationship in terms of what Christianity and what God meant for me, and based, outside of what society thought it should be for me. And I think around 9, 10, I was the person, I kind of almost got to a point where I committed myself to the space, to Christ, and I was clear that this is who I am. And so I'm a full-on Methodist, whole attire that works. And the difference was for me that I realized that the things that I found compelling about a God was a God that was human, a God that understood that things happen, but the choices that you make are the things that determine whether or not you live in a regret life or you live in a life that is hopeful and is full of faith. So when I make decisions, I always look at it from that point of integrity, in terms of I need to understand what is the core issue. Lying to you, I know it doesn't help you grow, but breaking you also is not going to help you grow. So as a result, my approach to life has always been around understanding what drives the human being, the person on opposite you, and then appealing to that level of saying, if this is your true nature that you own, how does this reflect against the action or the behavior or anything that is happening around you? So when I make a decision about myself, whether I'm going to do something or not do something, it always goes to the core of me. Is it something I truly believe in? Is it something that I have promised someone that I earnestly wanted to do, or is it something I pretended to want to do? And it always comes from a place that says, can I fall asleep at night knowing I did not hurt someone, I did not commit something bad over that person or say something bad over that person. I was honest, I was true. If I died at this very moment, I'm quite certain that I did not do anything intentionally to hurt another. And I think that's what drives me in all that I do, is my intention must always be pure. And if my intention is not pure, I don't do it.
So you listen to your inner voice.
I listen to my inner voice, and I think it helps when, I think as a child, I was always a very reflective child, but also I was a child that asked a lot of questions. So in asking questions, I then thought a lot. So even as a teenager, I was one of those slightly awkward teenagers who spent a lot of time in their head. I read a lot, I reflect a lot, I think. I've got a very good relationship with my parents and my siblings. I then ask the questions that don't make sense. So I have those conversations with my mother about things that I don't understand in a Christian space. So growing up, I had that ability to ask. So as a result, my inner voice for me is a very important voice. So I don't call it gut. I call it my real intuition of, when I meet the person, what do I feel about the person? What is the energy that person carries? And it sounds very interesting, very weird for different people, because they think then you're kind of mixing two things. Because I also believe people just carry energy. People carry the positive things said over their lives, the negative things said over their lives. And they carry that around. And they may not be aware of it, but they carry it. And some people carry the negative emotions that run through them. And if you're not aware that people carry that energy, that God will speak to you through different ways, and you will see this person, you may not understand what it is about the person, then you will miss what it is that connection with the person is supposed to be about. Instead, you'll kind of almost become quite superficial. And sometimes a connection with somebody may be purely about that person, and you don't know what it is that the journey they are on, but that intersection of you and them may have had a life-changing moment for them. For you, it might have irritated you because you might have just wanted to have a casual drink. But for that person, something shifted that could have ended very badly, but it shifted because they could talk to you about something.
And what would you say are your sources of inspiration?
My source of inspiration, weirdly enough, and it sounds very cliche, I find my parents very inspirational. So briefly, I think my parents are, it's a rural, they grew up rural without much. I mean, my dad is probably, in my mind, one of the smartest yet uneducated people I know. And I find what inspires me is their ability to evolve and engage with the world in a way that is always kind. They've grown. I mean, both of them have had responsibilities in their own families. We grew up. They've committed to a life of continuous change, so that we are comfortable with the idea that you are evolving, you're changing. We are trying to change with you, we're trying to support you in the best way. So, and I find that such an inspirational quality, because they did not live in a space that said, because I come from here, my future is X, and my children's future will be X. They came from a place that defied all of the things that people, assume happens in a family. I mean, I'm from a Zulu family because I'm from KZN, but my father is far from a typical traditionalist as people look at all male species. I find he's a lot more, he's warmer, he's accommodating. I mean, he was a truck driver, and my mother went to school being supported by my mother. My mother is a nurse and grew and studied, and my mother is just I don't know, she just doesn't get enough of learning. So she's just a learning being, and has grown, and you've just learned from her that you can assimilate things that were never part of your initial environment, and they can become a core of you. And I find the two of them are quite different beings, and in a world where people are ashamed of where they come from, or in a world where people exert negative energy over others when they feel, my family is it's very balanced. My dad is my dad, he's great, he knows different things about us, we're all close, we all have different relationships, and they tend to, and what has fascinated me as an adult is I have friends that will come over, and I find they become closer to my parents than even we are, because of their just ability to adapt. My parents, I mean, I've got lesbian, gay friends, all kinds, strange people. And my parents have just been consistent in terms of kindness, love, support. And I've actually realized that there's just so much you can do in the world where you are honest but kind. You've got that empathy, you support a dream, you help guide a dream. We could all be so much further. And for me, they have been the anchor, because no matter how tough things are, my first phone call is usually to my parents. And I'll complain about work, a place that they may have zero understanding of what I'm going through, but the concept, they've got a level of just seeing you in that, and then connecting with you in terms of what's going on in you, because it's not about what's going on around me. It's what is it that's making me feel like X? What do I want to do about it? Is that how I want to feel? And it's become such a simple way of simplifying life, this complication that people call life. It's just a simple honesty with self.
So it's about your inner journey.
Inner journey, who are you? Is this who you want to be? It's who the person you want to see in the mirror. So as a result, I'm not a person who would scream and shout and be rude, and because I'm very conscious of myself when I do that, because it comes from a very conscious place. I can never say, oh, I do not know what I was doing, because I'm conscious of it, because I am that aware of who I said I wanted to be, not who they said I wanted to be, who I said I wanted to be, and what this is against who I want to be.
So would you say authenticity is about being real?
Yes.
And maybe a little bit raw?
Yes. There's a level of vulnerability I think we lack in society. And I find the most successful people, when I look at people that inspire me, are people that are not afraid to own weakness. Because once you own it, you're able to work with it to strengthen the things that are your strengths. But if you don't own it, it can have an ability to pull you down from the strength that you have. So I find the people I work with, the people I gravitate towards, the places I work, it's usually a person who's got a level of vulnerability, because it allows me to be vulnerable, it allows me to feel safe. And I think it's just what we lack, is allowing people to feel safe in their thoughts, even if their thoughts are different from you.
Now, Thandeka, let's talk about your career.
Okay.
Where did you start your career?
Sheesh. So I was very fortunate in that I went to a lovely Model C school in the Bluff in KZN. And I was like, I had very good, I think I had an accounting teacher that I guess was great. And teachers who, I guess in their minds, just probably wanted at least some of us to make it in the world. I mean, and it was just a pure accidental thing. And I think they'd learned how to make us do this thing. So it was an assignment. We wrote letters to addresses that she gave us in the accounting class. And next thing I knew, I had phone calls from KPMG and Deloitte, and I was being invited to interviews for bursaries, something I wasn't even aware of. When you're in high school and you're unsure where you're going to go to varsity, and you're thinking, well, options is I would probably be, I don't know, a teacher, a nurse. I kind of figured I might not, the medical space is a bit funky, but I figured, okay, maybe it's doctor. I might not get it, but okay. And I had these interviews, and there's a lady at Deloitte. Gosh, why am I forgetting her name? Such an amazing lady. When somebody just takes a liking to you. And throughout the process, eventually I got a full bursary. And then it turned out, because I didn't know whether I was going to get money for school, I hadn't applied for RES. I had applied for WITS because I'd heard of financial aid in the high school now. But I didn't apply for RES because we couldn't afford RES. And I thought, well, I'll have to do, share apartment or something. But, and at the time it was Durban based, and they were only really sponsoring people that study in Durban. So she made an exception for me to study in Johannesburg. Ended up being the person dealing with the flat mate I had that day, because it was his apartment. I lived with a complete stranger in Johannesburg. And that level of support, even in that relationship, that flatmates, I think, realized that this person is young and, was trying to become a lot more, want or not want to honor. When I was moving into RES, she stepped in. I mean, I had a whole corporate step in to get me out of a lease. So I became, I came to WITS, and I think that I studied a course I didn't know what I was doing. But because I just felt her kindness, and I felt like I couldn't disappoint her. So it wasn't even about an institution. It was her, that she's given me such a huge opportunity. I've got to study this thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure I can do it. And she was so, somebody who was very encouraging. So I didn't feel like I couldn't do it. And it helped that my mother was very clear that she doesn't have the money to pay these people back. So I best do what I need to do. And I think my career started from there, where I learned to apply myself irrespective of whether I enjoyed it or it was a choice I made. But I realized if you've made a decision, you've got to honor it and follow through. And I think that flew in, that kind of rolled into my own work. When I started articles at Deloitte, it was, you've got to do the best, be present in everything that is given in front of you, because if this is who you are, this is what people are going to remember. If somebody's given you an opportunity, make use of it the best way you can. And I think because I'd experienced that from a bursary and saw my life shift completely. You get to university, you have people who don't know what they're going to eat, they don't, and I'm like, I've got a complete stranger who has fought for me to be able to not have that stress. So my career really started there, and I think I was lucky in that, and very blessed in that. I think even at Deloitte, I partners took a liking to me, and maybe because I was very true to myself, and I've always believed in the fair treatment of people. So, I mean, one of my first interactions and my first, I guess, real firm positions I took was against a partner that I felt was not living up to what it is that we had spoken about, where on the one hand they talk about transformation, empowerment, etc. On the other hand, would only give jobs to white kids or kids that he liked. And I did that, and I think it was the second year. And it became a big thing because it was a very public thing, because I felt you cannot sit in public and tell people one thing and be another. I cannot sit here, if my sitting in that room and not saying anything, I'm condoning your behavior. I can't sleep at night.
That's the courage you were talking about?
And that's the courage I'm talking about, that, yes, I risked my job, I risked being ostracized, but it's the bravery of doing the right thing, even if it's not comfortable and even if you'll have zero support, but still do it. And it actually changed the culture of that. Almost ended up really catapulting the whole transformation agenda in the unit. It became something that was open, but also I found myself being mentored by the head of the business unit, by senior partners. I found myself having people that are looking after for me, because I was always, it wasn't somebody that you had to explain away my work. I was present. I was doing everything and more. And I was honest about what it is that needed to happen. So, and I think with that, I just had people that kept pushing me to try things and, moving to different things, and were open to the fact that when I got to a point, you qualify, and I was like, guys, the reality is I don't know what I want to do. Yes, I'm a CA. I know I don't want to be a partner. I know I don't get excited about being a CFO and all of those. I know I can do it, and I know I can do it well. But I'm not feeling a connection to it. But I also don't know what I'm connected to, and I needed help. And again, it was just extremely senior people that just out of nowhere, And I ended up in consulting, in Deloitte Consulting. Fantastic time. I got exposed to, I ended up I went to Gibbs for a women's leadership course, and all of those things. I was like, I'm a sponge. I want to know as much as I can know. And in that, again, you meet credible people. And there was a lady at the time, Destiny Magazine had just launched. I think it was about 6 months in or something. And this lady wanted to do a feature on CAs. So we sat in a conversation, and I was giving her, CAs that she can talk to. So she's asking me about just my journey. And then, weirdly enough, out of the blue, September, the reason I remembered September, because September was my birthday month, says to me, hey, you must go buy this month's issue. I'm like, why? She's like, you'd be surprised. Because she's like, initially before, she's like, no, do you have pictures? I'm like, I do. She's like, no, you must come take pictures. She's like, for what? It's like, no, I'm just putting pictures of all the different CAs. So I'm like, oh, okay. I take pictures. And I open this magazine, and there I've got a whole page about, and I'm apparently young and powerful. And I was like, what does this mean? And it was such an amazing thing, because it was reading what somebody heard me say, but I've never heard me say. And realizing that there's a power within me that can change other people's lives. They can do more than I think I can do. So I think that propelled me again to be a little bit more confident about trying. And with that, I got headhunted to be an EA for Mutual, the CEO of Mutual at the time, Paul Hanratty. So I was like, I don't know what that is. It was when EA's just started, and I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like, no, you work for the CEO. You basically are his right-hand person. You execute what it is that he needs executing, that he's been tasked with, you need to deliver. I was like, okay, that's a bit, I just, I'm thinking I'm barely 2 years out of articles. How is this going to happen? I sat with this man, and I'll never forget that interview. It was one of those, for me, I think a defining interview in my life, because we had a conversation, and it was an interview where I realized I was asking questions, more than I was asking questions. We were sharing opinions, we were disagreeing on things, we were agreeing on things, and I was completely confused. So when my mom calls me afterwards, like, how did the interview go? I'm like, I have no idea, because I got to a place where I was so comfortable, I was so clear in my views, and if they differed with him, and some of the things I was saying that, and next thing I knew, he had hired me. And it turned out I was the first accountant he'd actually hired. He's an actuary, so he always hired actuaries. So I was the only accountant. So he ended up hiring 2, because it was like, well, I don't know how accountant, I want you to work with me, and I want an actuary, so I'm going to have both. And it was a fascinating thing. So then also I think it was 3 months or 6 months into the job, he gets an opportunity to head up all the long-term savings businesses in the mutual group globally. And he has to move to the UK. So I'm just like, okay, so I know what happens. Sits me down, he says, Thandeka, I'd really like you to come with me to the UK. I think we could do this together. So, and I'm expecting, actually we'll go, He's like, no. I'm like, why? He's like, because you will never lie to me. And I thought that is such a powerful thing. When somebody trusts you that you will never lie to them. You will not, I'm not afraid to tell him the truth, even if it creates friction for us in the middle, but I wouldn't, and I would not say it in a way that is disrespectful. And so, I worked with him. I had the most amazing 18 months of my life. I worked globally with different CEOs. You're assessing businesses. You are launching a first time ever in the financial services world, an investment fair to convince the world that this new structure would deliver the returns that needed, and the structure had capacity, and I found myself learning that I'm able to convince 2 executives that generally don't want to talk to each other to work together for a greater good, because he just trusted me that you will get this done. And I think when I came back, and so after 18 months, we sat down, because it was a 2-year thing. He's like, Thandeka, what do you want to do? Because I think if you stay here too long, you will not be able to do the things you need to do. And I said to him, I want to go back home. He said, South Africa? I was like, yes. He's like, why? I was like, because I've just realized I can add so much more in South Africa. So, you're trying to find the right spot at a mutual, and in between that, the current Auditor General, who is a patron of Abasa, because throughout I've always been a patron of Abasa. Again, because of the partners, one of the partners was the treasurer, and he was like, I don't have the time, so you must come do the treasury work for me. So that's how I got into Abasa, doing financials. And he said to me, he said, Thandeka, we're trying to professionalize the Auditor General. We are trying to really shift this country forward. And we're looking for guys to do that with. So initially I was like, this is a bit, I don't know if I want to work for government, I'm in the high. And he's like, you've seen the best of corporate. If you don't understand how governments work, you will not be able to do some of the things you want to do. And for me, that's what kind of got me to the AG. So I moved to Cape Town. I did it, fast track, again, series of events happened, and I found myself growing rapidly at the AG. I found myself learning different things, learning humility, realizing that how to be inclusive, because as much as, when you're working with a singular MD, the only two of you really made that decision. The rest of the time you're just getting people to work with you guys. Now you need people to deliver with you. And it's a different mindset, and it's learning that. And so I grew amazingly there. The AG, it was phenomenal, my growth there. And I find myself literally 3 years from walking into Western Cape as a deputy business exec to sitting at the AG's Exco team. And my job being to figure out how to make us do things better. And for me, I think that was just such a fascinating journey. And to come to XKX, for me, it's still one of the most humbling experiences, because I was facilitating a conversation on behalf of Abasa, because at the time I was the vice president of Abasa, with the premier and the accounting profession, because we were trying to figure out how does the accounting profession help in strengthening governance in the province. And the chairman it happened to be hosted by SekelaXabiso. And after that engagement, I had the chairman, and I hadn't met him before. That really, in the most humble way for me, called my office, called my PA, and arranged a time in my diary. And at the time, at the AG, I was working with all the accounting firms, because there's a large, AG subcontracts some of the work that they do. So, and it's part of that transformation journey that we try to do. So I thought maybe it's about that. Sat down with him on a lunch on a Friday, and he said to me, I would like you to join us. I'm like, why? He's like, because you have the confidence that can help take a business forward. That was it. There was nothing. He never asked me for a CV. And I was very confused. It was a 3 to 4 month courting relationship before I said, okay, fine, I'll come through. And again, trusting me to do things I've never done. I've never been a salesperson. But people see something in you, because I am me in whatever circumstance you find me in. I try not to be different people, because you can't keep up with different people. So I'm authentically me. I am who I am, and I am always willing to grow. I'm always true with how I feel and how I engage with the world. So, and that's how I managed to get here. Short story.
So tell us, Thandeka, you said the Destiny magazine article made you realize you have a power to help others.
Yes.
Can you tell us to help others how?
I realized that my ability to adapt without necessarily foregoing the process of processing your emotions and processing your experience had a powerful impact on those around me, and resulted in me finding myself in spaces that naturally, or the way we all look at life and growth, I would have never been in. And I found I have to find a way of sharing that with others. And I didn't realize just how much I'd already been doing that, because while I was at Deloitte, I was already heading up the Deloitte accounting school for standard 9 in matric. So I spent all my Saturdays universities teaching, and I found even in those classes, I was teaching less accounting but more life skills. How to deal, how to cope, how to elevate yourself from the situation that you are in. So I found that my conversations with people were a lot about helping people see their best self. And it helped that I could connect with them technically, but I could connect the technical is not separate from who you are. Because you can only go as far as, as you want, if you are aware of every step of the way, what does it mean to you? And so that article for me just captured what I thought I was doing as just a normal engagement of people. I mean, a pastor, I'd been active. So I was just one of those people. I realized I actually wasn't focused on having a massive social life. That my inherent self has always been a social capitalist. A term I didn't know existed until, because I used to make it up. And until I started reading up and realized there's actually a term called social capitalist. So I was like, I am a social person, but I do believe giving something for free to people does not empower someone. They must understand what it takes to get there, but they must be, you must walk the journey with them. You mustn't just kind of say, well, work. Because I would never be here if people didn't put the social element, as they were saying, you still have to earn that. You're not going to get a free ride. You still have to deliver. You still have to put your best self on the table. But we understand that there's things that you don't know. I mean, you must understand, when I started VAC work, I literally had to ask the guy, they gave me a bank recon. I was like, okay, guys, I really want to do this, but I'm unsure what you're asking me to look for. I haven't dealt with a checkbook, so I don't know. So I know it in theory that this is what a check looks like. But what do I actually look at here? What should match to what? And I was like, surely there's a lot of people like that. And it's not necessarily a question of race, but it's just a question of where your upbringing. If your upbringing did not include that, wherever you were raised, you are sitting in a space where you need someone to help you in that journey, to clarify. So even now with my team, I mean, I do push them a little bit, but you know, we talk about some of the technology things, and they all kind of say, like, how do you know this? I'm like, no, I read. All I'm encouraging you to do is, when you see something and you're curious about it, do the one step further and find out a little bit about it, so that when you ask somebody who's knowledgeable in it, you've done some groundwork so that that information can land on some fertile soil. And that for me is what a social capitalist is, and that's what I feel a responsible leader is. It's a person that helps people create a fertile soil so that when more things happen, when the seeds are planted, something can grow. But you can't just plant seed on hard ground. Nothing will grow. And we keep forgetting that, I think, as a society. We keep assuming, but the seed is there. Why can't you just plant it? And you're thinking, because we're not doing the...
So would you say your gift is to convert confidence into competence? Because you have the confidence that you can do, takes the next step, takes a leap of faith?
Yes.
And then acquire the competence?
Yes. And I found in my career, in ways that I didn't plan, I always had gates that allowed me to look back, opportunities that allowed me to look back and say, hey, Thandeka, you actually are smarter than you think. You actually can do this. You can engage people. You know, you can talk to people. You can narrate a story. And it's all those things that happen without, for me personally, it wasn't conscious. And I understand now why people were doing the things that they did around me. The reasons why people spent that little time of just breaking ground. Because they knew what it will do for me in the future. I may not get it at that time. I may feel like, oh, why I'm so overwhelmed. I'd also like to have a social life like everyone. But they always encouraged it. No, get involved. Listen, go. You know, sometimes listening to people, you don't know what it is when whatever that person said will matter. It might not click to you at that moment. But when the time is appropriate, it will be like, you know, a coin in a slot machine at the right time. And for me, for me, I found there's a power of my style of being and my style of leadership and my style and my personal, I guess, brand. That's who I am.
So, Thandeka, let's talk about leadership.
Yes.
What would you say are the enablers of the future leader?
The enablers of a future leader for me is a leader that is in touch. And to expand just being in touch as just one, is people wake up from different beds when they come to work, or come to a gathering, but they wake up in different beds. And when they're waking up in those different beds, there are different things that are happening around them all the time. And those things either tell them positive things or negative things or nothing at all. And so that person comes full of different things that are just sitting there without a pattern. And if you're not in touch with the fact that there's different things that happen to people's lives, you're unable to draw a pattern out for someone out of the experience. So you may have someone who thinks because they live in a shack, they are not worthy. Instead of seeing that the fact that even though they live in a shack, they've pulled themselves to a place where they are on a daily basis engaging with people that do not understand their struggle, and they win. So they don't see the power of that environment allowing them or enabling them to be much more versatile, much more creative about solutioning, about how to do things, because you solution quickly because you know that you live far. You can't afford to be at work at 8 at night. So your solutioning is about efficiency. But you don't see it that way because you've allowed that. So a leader that's not in touch would not be able to see into that person and pull that lesson out. So that for me is the first enabler of leaders. Just be in touch. Be in touch with the world, with people's experiences. The second one for me is, it's a concept that people think, I don't know how many times I've had to explain it. You've got to be kind as a leader. And this sounds like touchy-feely things from an accountant. But being kind means recognizing that just because somebody is not good at the job you have given them does not necessarily mean that they lack ability to do anything. Be kind. Be kind in how you correct, how you listen, how you guide. Because sometimes we lose and kill people because they don't do things the way we do them, or the way we expect them to do it. But maybe they're just better at other things, much better at other things. And I'll give an example with this with my siblings. There's 4 of us. All 4 of us have very strong personalities, but in very different things. I know that in a space where there is a stressful situation, I am good at simplifying actions and focusing on the task. But I know that my weakness at that point is I may not get in touch with how you are feeling because I'm trying to deal with this. I have an older sister who is very feeling by nature. So she would connect into that space first, in almost the extreme as well. So she's the right person to check if, are you okay? How are you feeling? And kind of get into that. I have my little sister will literally, she'll almost disengage and only come back when she is certain of these are the things I want as outcomes here. So almost getting into a space where she connects with maybe others. So I find we have strongest, weirdly enough, in funeral situations. I always find that takes up the worst in people and the best in people are situations that are unplanned and are emotionally draining. She will be more in touch with the need of what is the person's need? How do I honor this person? I will deal with logistics of, is it done? Is it dignified? How do we do it? Can somebody do it? Are you cooking? Are you not cooking? So do I get someone to cook? Yeah. And my brother will be that guy that is going to find the way of getting that warmth and the connecting with different people. So kind of work in between all the different places. And that allows us where when we all sit back, you realize that you've actually dealt with the emotional, the logistic, the just comfort, the faith, everything completely for everyone, yet we all were working in our places of strength. And I find leaders don't do that at work. They don't put people in their areas of strength and match them with someone who can help them not focus so much on their weakness. Instead, we almost put people in a space where we see just the weakness. So that's the kindness.